In the following video, I will explore the radical depiction of the classic battle between science and religion that is depicted in Joy, a film about the struggles faced in the development of the ultimate self-ringing mop. No, sorry, that's old. I mean, not the film Old, obviously. I mean to say that's the Old Joy. Not Old Joy, that's Kelly Reichardt's one. Just let me... Joy, released in 2024, is a film about the struggles faced in the development of IVF treatment in the late 60s through to the 70s. Our protagonist is Jean Purdy, who applies to work under biologist Bob Edwards.
I'm here about the lab manager's post.
Forming a team with obstetrician Patrick Steptoe.
This team which you've not yet explained to me.
Oh, we're going to cure childlessness.
This they are attempting to do through the method of in vitro fertilization. Put simply, removing an egg from the ovaries, fertilizing it, then returning it back to whence it came. This cutting-edge research is largely experimental and presents its own challenges, but on top of this, receives an immense amount of pushback from the public, particularly from the Christian community, exacerbated by the tabloid press who want to stir up a frenzy. On the surface, this looks like a run-of-the-mill, rose-tinted period piece, but cinematically speaking, it harbours some radical ideas in the symbolic representation of science versus religion. With over 12 million children born from IVF to date, this method has become common medical practice. This fact alone skewers our understanding of the conflict at the core of Joy. Our trio have been vindicated over time. As the audience, we have a superseding knowledge that the work of these scientists will ultimately triumph. The poster and opening narration confirm that the work will be successful, and so we are inclined to take a default position alongside these pioneers, and against those standing in the way of progress. In the film, this resistance is represented in the church, a classic representation that is usually sympathetic.
It's dirty, what you're doing. It's disgusting, it's shameful, and it doesn't belong here.
Science and the scientist are necessarily objective, and therefore have classically been painted as immoral and inhumane. Hence the comparison in Joy to Josef Mengele.
The work we do might lead to similar abhorrence.
I'm a Nazi doctor now, am I?
Possessing an otherness that separates them from humanity, this is the root of the villainous trope of the mad scientist. A character that I find fascinating and have written about extensively. If you're interested, check out my other videos on this subject. This is the accusation thrown at our trio.
They want a quote as to whether I'm Dr. Frankenstein or not.
Figurehead Bob Edwards tries to present his argument about calculated risk and absolute care, and playfully mocks the association.
Mr. and Mrs. Frankenstein? It's Dr. Frankenstein!
Accused of playing God.
That's ridiculous. You do nothing but play God, and I think your octoparrot would agree.
Probably shouldn't be.
The claims aren't exactly denied, rather they are reframed as something positive. The life-preserving role of a surgeon, particularly in obstetrics, has been associated with the God complex in the past.
When someone goes into that chapel and they fall on their knees and they pray to God that their wife doesn't miscarry, who do you think they're praying to? If you're looking for God, he was in operating room number 2. You ask me if I have a God complex? Let me tell you something. I am God.
Here it is layered in symbolically. Patrick Steptoe is discussed as an abortionist, and though this is sadly still relevant half a century later, the moral argument is put concisely by the matron.
We are here to give women choice. Every choice.
Joy cleverly casts Bill Nighy in this role. He has an indelible suaveness and charm that is utterly disarming, so whilst there is subtle allusion to his divine talent, we see the limit of his omnipotence.
The bit I most dislike about this job is having to decide who will get help and who will not.
The letters he receives like prayers.
Hundreds of letters. I know you get them too.
He seems altogether more human and driven by compassion. One small scene that I think is particularly telling is when the team visit the Medical Research Council. They are presented like a vampiric cabal, dour and in a darkened room. Their objections for the treatment are not based on its immorality, rather,
we at the Medical Research Council have expended considerable resources looking into the problem of overpopulation.
Lady, if I may, that is an entirely different argument.
this scene symbolically reaffirms the suspicions about the scientific community, but distances our characters from it. As if to say, the fear of cold-blooded scientists is valid, but look at these shining exceptions, who aren't like the others at all.
Shame on you!
They show promise of retaining their humanity. To help us understand the religious point of view, it is made personal through the character of Jean. In the film, she is a Christian, and as such has one foot on either side of the debate, though to be clear, she is never torn about the morality of the research. Jean doesn't see why her work should interfere with her faith or religious practice, and yet she's kicked out of her home by her pious mother and forbidden from visiting the church.
Reverend Paulson has advised that you don't come to church.
Mother of the protagonist, Gladys represents traditional values, so that when she dies, it means the research can now continue. Our team reconvening in the church at the funeral, no less. Conceding that science can be coldly objective, and that our guys are essentially playing God, the film presents the evolution of the scientist symbolically through Jean and Bob's relationship to their work and the people involved. Jean initially appears cold to the women trying to be mothers, the self-titled Ovum Club.
No offence, but you don't look exactly happy to see us.
Did I?
Her arc involves breaking through this stereotype and becoming more human.
Failure on case number 136.
Kathy,
Hold on. We should start preparing the solutions.
I need to speak to Kathy. She'll be upset.
Eventually beyond empathy and compassion to cheerleading supporter. This development is mirrored in Bob too.
I know they're just specimens in a jar for you, but these are people's lives.
Rachel, Kathy, Gail, Trisha, Harriet, Jan, Gracie, Nicola, Julie, Viv, Mel.
You know their names.
The humanity is spreading.
Of the Ovum Club? Yes. I'm a scientist, Jean.
Joy presents the classic battle of science versus religion, but flips the usual representation, showing religion as a traditionalist hurdle and science as a progressive force for good.
Castle.